All righty, how's it going? Forgive me for looking like a nut. I cut myself shaving this morning. I cut my ear pretty badly rushing. So forgive me if I look like a mental patient. All right, let's get going. So Kevin Ra here, founder at CloseAbility, co-founder. I closed several hundred transactions as an investor, several thousand as an escrow agent or examiner, I should say. And we are getting ready to go live here. Just going to pull up my agenda real quick. On the call with me, two of my co-founders, Joanna, who we sometimes call Jamie, and Ezekiel. So today's lesson centers around how to set up our marketing for maximum success when it comes to distressed real estate. So any of you that have been hanging around CloseAbility Academy for a while have heard me tell the story many times about how we launched CloseAbility Academy in the SaaS Academy software incubator, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, software incubators in the world, under the tutelage of the best software coach in the world, Dan Martell. And within SaaS Academy, we met or had the privilege of coming into SaaS Academy with many of the co-founders of some of the other real estate applications, real estate property tech applications, Carrot, Invest Refuse, Deal Machine. And within a very short period of time after looking at the products that these companies had launched in SaaS Academy, we very quickly realized that it didn't appear that the founders, in my opinion, had closed a whole lot of distressed real estate transactions, the founders of those platforms, because there were just some things missing from those transactions that would not be missing if we were focused on coming up with distressed real estate features and workflows from the position of having closed a lot of distressed real estate transactions, because there are just some things that you would inherently know. And one of those things is what we're going to be talking about today. So to my knowledge, all of the existing platforms, whether it be platforms like Equator or ResNet that are providing agents leads for distressed real estate transactions, whether it be the platforms that are used for lead gen, Driving for Dollars, Deal Machine, Invest Refuse, Deal Machine, PropStream, and not knocking any of those apps, but those apps are actually features. None of them are platforms. And what I mean by that is none of them can provide a complete solution end-to-end for sourcing, managing, and closing distressed real estate transactions and scaling. They're great for onesie-twosies, but if you are trying to scale, for example, if you're an agent working with a REIT, CloseAbility was designed to work with Home Partners of America, which at the time was buying about 12,000 houses a year. So if you want to scale to the higher levels and be able to close a lot more deals, source a lot more deals, manage a lot more deals, then you are going to need a platform that contemplates everything that happens in the transaction from end to end, from sourcing to managing to closing, and then what we call the monitor stage, which is what happens after you close the deal, to keep your eye on a property to make sure that future opportunities to close the transaction on that same property, right? Because just because you closed and got paid does not mean that the property went anywhere. It's still there. And the average American family moves every 7 years. And so if you close a property today, that means somewhere around 5.5, 6 years from now, you'd better still have that property in your purview so that you can take a look at what could possibly happen to see if there's another transaction there to be made. So that's what we'll be focused on today. And so this lesson, ideal customer profile versus ideal transaction profile, this is teaching you how to source transactions and build your audience on the CloseAbility platform, where you are using our ITP, ideal transaction profile, versus what the other platforms are telling you to use, which are ideal customer profiles, which are great for the regular real estate business. So that's the 90% of transactions that close in the United States each year. Using ICP profiles for those are just fine. Something that's not broken doesn't need to be fixed. However, if you are trying to buy properties at a discount, or if you are trying to be an agent servicing homeowners who own distressed real estate as a listing agent, or if you're the buyer's agent trying to get your buyer great deals, then that's not going to work. And so we're going to show you how to run the ITP today and show you the difference between the two. And by the end of this call, you'll understand how to build your audiences, your marketing audiences, so that you are going after the ideal transactions and not just the ideal homeowner, because those are two completely different things. All right. So let's get started. So again, my name is Kevin Rock, co-founder at CloseAbility. I have bought and sold over 300 properties myself. I have the deeds to prove it. Info at closeability.io. Anybody wants to test me on that, I'll send you a Google link drive with every single deed that has my name on it from my own portfolio. I also owned a escrow company that's only closed distressed real estate transactions and spent many years as an examiner. So I know the business from backwards to forward. I also had within that a paralegal career where I assisted attorneys that were litigating against banks and mortgage companies. I've been in the depositions. I've prepared the discovery. I've been in bankruptcy court when large mortgage companies and mortgage servicers declared bankruptcy, and somebody had to go through there and work to protect the creditors or investors. And so I've been all around the distressed real estate business since 1999. So I know a thing or two when it comes to distressed real estate. And two of my co-founders, Joanna and Keel, who are on this call, also have been around the real estate business as examiners, 40 years combined experience there. So we have over 60 years combined experience of dealing in the distress space, and we teach agents who also invest how to work effectively within this space, close more deals, maximize profits. So the ideal customer profile versus the ideal transaction profile, and why traditional lead gen does not work if you're trying to scale a distressed real estate business, either as a buyer's agent, listing agent, or investor. Next slide. Okay, so today we're going to go over a quick case study of how we applied the ITP over the ICP, and we're able to accomplish some great things within an organization here in Cleveland that we run, and also with an agent that represents that organization that only deals in the distressed space. So when I say distressed, I mean short sales, probates, foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, post-foreclosures, which is something that most of you don't even know about. That's after sheriff sale, but before confirmation by the court, where there is still a period where the homeowner can either sell the property or redeem it. So basically any sale where the divorce, any sale where the homeowner is going through life events, we call them, that are forcing the sale of the property. And most likely the property would be transferred in the next 1 to 3 years, even if the homeowner took no steps whatsoever to transfer them. So that's how we define the distressed space. The distressed space is 10% of the entire residential real estate market in the United States. So you figure 4 million houses closed per year, according to the National Association of Realtors. So about 400,000 transactions a year are in our space. That is still a very, very, very large market, especially when we're talking about places like Dallas, Atlanta, South Florida, where even distressed real estate may sell for $1 million, $2, $3 million. So next slide, please. So the idea behind most real estate platforms is the agent fire. I can name a million of them, right? They are all working on the idea that lead gen will solve your problems, right? And the thing about that is that's not the case in distressed real estate. And so if you think about where the discounts are, where the best deals are, a distressed real estate transaction, one of the reasons all of us want to find and get into and close these transactions is because distressed transactions provide big profits. They provide the biggest opportunity to get a property at a discount which is especially if we're coming in there as an investor, which is what we really want. But if we're coming in there as the listing agent, we also want that, because if we can get a good property on the market at a lower price than the competing listings, that's going to provide an opportunity for us to possibly even get a bidding war going and go over asking, etc. So we all in this business, we are all looking for great deals. Either we're looking for great deals for ourselves, or we're looking for great deals for clients if you're an agent. And if you think about that for a moment, if lead gen could solve the problem of scaling properties that could be bought at a discount, well, these three gentlemen on my screen, Neil Patel, Gary Vaynerchuk, Russell Branson, these people have tens of millions of followers on social media, and they are generally regarded as the three best lead gen experts on earth. Russell Branson, obviously the owner of ClickFunnels, which, by the way, was also in SaaS Academy, the same incubator that we launched CloseAbility in. So shout out to them as a fellow SaaS Academy alum. And the fact of the matter is, there's a reason these three guys are not in the real estate business. Because if it was just about lead gen, they could come into the real estate business, they could out lead gen any agent, any investor, any brokerage, any real estate brand, and they would have all the leads. So you have to ask yourself, why is it that the best lead generators in the world are not simply in the best business, the most profitable business in the world, which is distressed real estate? Well, we're going to find out why. Next slide. So what happens is, so quick story. So when I came up with the idea to invent the technology that powers CloseAbility, I had a very, very, very specific problem. So at this point, I had already been an investor for almost 20 years. So this is 2018. I started my real estate investment career in 1999. So I'm already 20 years in. I've already been through 2008, 2009. I've proven I can survive the worst market and turn lemons into lemonade in those markets. So you would think that all I had to do was simply increase. Excuse me. For those of you who don't know, I'm in Cleveland. This time of year, we're going to have a cough. The temperatures are crazy. High 70, low 38 in the same day. So you would think all I had to do to make more money was just simply increase the amount of leads that are coming into my system, and we're going to have success. And I've told this story a million times before. For those of you who haven't heard it, at the time I was using Pipedrive as my CRM, and I had gotten my direct mail response rate up to 36%. Now, at the time, the average direct mail response rate was 0.5%. So I was 720 times the average as far as my response rate from the letters I was sending out. And I remember watching my Pipedrive account fill up with all these distressed homeowners. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm getting ready to be richer than Rockefeller. Which is a big deal because, again, I'm from Cleveland, and there are two people all Clevelanders love. That's John Rockefeller and LeBron James. So I'm thinking, man, I'm going to be richer than Rockefeller. I have all of these leads coming in, and I'm going to start closing all of these deals. I'm going to have all this inventory. I'm going to put a moat around my position as the number one wholesaler in Cleveland, and this is going to be great. Well, it turns out that as I filled up my Pipedrive with more leads, it did not necessarily equate to more closings or more income. And so the reason, what I discovered over time is that there was a tremendous bottleneck in my systems where all of these homeowners were coming into Pipedrive, but when it came time to drag them down the different stages I had set up in Pipedrive, where the closing was at the end of those stages, I couldn't get more deals down. So I'm like, okay, what is causing this bottleneck? And what I discovered is because I had no way to analyze the transactions when the homeowners called in, I had no way of figuring out which one of these transactions was going to actually close and how fast it would close and how much money I would make, and the ones that were not going to close, how to identify those. And so I very quickly discovered that I had to have a way to analyze these transactions so that I could figure out which ones were actually going to close and get them into my CRM and get them into escrow and get the contract signed as quickly as possible. And then the ones that were not going to close, get those out of my pipeline as soon as possible, and preferably make it so they never enter my pipeline in the first place. So that's what I had to achieve, was how do I get rid of this bottleneck? Next slide. So here's the challenge. So we're working with our organization, and we are looking to buy distressed real estate, and we are testing what would eventually become the workflows that became CloseAbility. And we're like, okay, what's the challenge here? Okay, well, our agent who we're working with is hitting a 36% direct mail response rate. So we have tons of people calling that want to do business with us. That's fantastic. But we're not closing more deals. And even when we put the deals into the pipeline, we don't know which ones are actually going to close. So we're treating all the leads equally, but we know better because we know all of those leads aren't equal. So now we have to come up with a solution. So the solution was, we invented and mind you, at this time, we're using the ideal customer profile method that almost all realtors and investors are using to generate their leads, right? So what does that look like? Oh, well, we're looking for people that are in probate. We're looking for people that are getting divorced. We're looking for people that are in foreclosure, right? Or people that aren't paying other bills like credit cards and car payments, and the creditors are putting judgment liens on them, right? And they're also homeowners. So that's what we're looking for. But that is the information related to the property owner. In a distressed transaction, it's highly likely that the property owner is not going to be the only decision maker, right? In a short sale, you got to have the bank's approval. And if it's an FHA loan, the FHA has to approve. Or in a divorce, you may need the judge to sign off on it. Or in a probate, you definitely need the judge to sign off on it. So we had to figure out how to solve this problem. And we knew the solution would only target properties that had a high likelihood of closing, which means we're going to get paid. Now, the ICP-based systems, they are targeting homeowners that are highly likely to be experiencing some type of distress. But experiencing some type of distress and actually closing, two different things. So, next slide. So, what does the ideal system look like? The ideal system for realtors, agents, investors that are working in the distress space, one, it could identify your audience, right? What properties fall within that distressed niche that we're going to go after. So in this case, we use PropStream, very popular app, great app. Our agents use it. We use it. Again, we're not knocking these apps, but these apps are not platforms. These apps provide certain features. They're not all inclusive of all the workflows and data and analytics you need to scale in distressed real estate, right? So, I was going to go off on a tangent there, but story for a different day. So here she decides, okay, we're going to go on CloseAbility. PropStream is connected to CloseAbility through a connector we have where you can export your PropStream leads and then upload them into CloseAbility for analysis. And so she decides, okay, I'm going to go out into the neighborhood. I'm going to identify properties that have physical distress, because that's what PropStream is very good at. and I am going to bring those in. I'm also going to use the other features of PropStream to identify legal title distress, and that creates my audience. So from there, what most people do is make the mistake of marketing to all of these people. Well, the problem is all of those homeowners do not have transactions that could profitably close, assuming they agree to work with you in the first place. Just not going to happen. The other problem is if you spend a lot of time and money marketing to homeowners who you actually cannot close the deal with, then you are wasting a lot of money that you could spend targeting a smaller audience. So what does this look like? Well, one of the reasons our direct mail response rate is so high is because rather than market to 1,000 people or 2,000 people, we're going to use CloseAbility and the framework Audience Igniter that I'm getting ready to touch on. We're going to use those tools to reduce the size of that audience from 1,000, 2,000, all the way down to 300. So within the Audience Igniter framework, we are looking at the top 300 potential deals in our market, or some of you that work in multiple markets per market. Well, what does that do? So rather than send 2,000 postcards or 2,000 one-page letters, we can send 300 letters, and they can be certified in priority and 9.5 by 12, and they can be full color. So we simply can hit the homeowners in our audience more times because we've reduced the number of people that we're marketing to. So with the same budget, that's the main point, right? We could take the same budget you would use to spray 2,000 homeowners with ineffective mailings, and we can spray 300 homeowners with highly effective mailings. So that's what the Audience Igniter framework does. And that's why we use this. I use it for my own investments. We use it for all of our clients. We teach it in CloseAbility Academy. That's why we use this framework, because we want to make sure that the marketing achieves its goal. And the only goal of marketing is to make the potential customer, the prospect, in this case, the homeowner, aware that we exist, and then further communicate with them to show them what we have to offer. And so psychology says you got to hit any market, regardless of what service you are advertising. You got to hit any market 6, 7, 8 times per prospect if you really want to see results. So you just imagine the difference between sending 2,000 postcards or 2,000 one-page letters and now reducing that audience to 300 and landing 4, 5, 6 certified letters that have to be signed for, and then a couple of postcards saying, hey, we're still here, and then a final breakup letter saying, hey, this is the last letter I'm going to send you. And based on my marketing, I know what your pain points are and how I can offer solutions to those specific pain points. And we will get into that shortly. So at the next step, using the ITP framework, we're able to laser target, and I'll show you what that looks like. So that's reducing down to my top 300 prospects and not focusing on anybody else. And then the most important thing, going back to that previous slide with the bottleneck, how do we make sure that the leads aren't bottlenecking, which means they're coming into our CRM, but not making it further down the CRM stages where they actually turn into closes, wire transfers, commission checks, closings, wire transfers, commission checks, etc. Well, that's where the CloseAbility analysis comes in. But because before you add that transaction to your CRM, so CloseAbility is positioned between your marketing efforts and your CRM. Something has to protect your CRM from being filled with deals that are not going to close. And CloseAbility is the platform that makes sure the deals that go in your CRM are going to lead to closed deals, which then will lead to revenue growth. And part of that revenue can go into your pocket, and part can be reinvested right back into the beginning, so that we have a flywheel effect where this now starts to fund itself. Because I'm putting the right deals in my CRM at the end of my marketing effort, then I'm closing those deals. I'm getting paid timely. Some of that money is going back to the beginning to continue to identify and market to my laser specific audience. Okay. Very important. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at the differences between ICP development and ITP development. So in the ICP world, real estate pros are incorrectly taught to target homeowners based on traditional metrics like you're in probate. Okay. So let's think about this for a minute. An older person owns a home and they take out a mortgage right before they die because they're having trouble making ends meet, and they don't tell their children about the mortgage. So they pass away. The children are set to inherit the house. They have no clue that there's a mortgage. So the mortgage didn't get paid, and now the house is in foreclosure or on its way to foreclosure. So targeting owners in probate using this example, well, I could take a look at two transactions. One can have a mortgage with a bank that is very, very, very short sale friendly, and another with a bank that is not short sale friendly. So on the surface, if I'm just targeting people in probate, those two transactions look the same. And those systems teach you, oh, go ahead and market to both of those people. Well, only one of them has a chance of closing, right? Or both of them could have a chance of closing, but one has a chance of closing with a lot less resistance, okay? For example, one of those mortgages could be a home equity line of credit with a bank like Citizens, who does a great job of pushing their short sale offers through. Not saying they accept every offer they get, but they have great processes involved where you do get the offer in, they get it reviewed, and they get you an answer. Versus another bank, or it could be let's say it's an FHA mortgage, where now you have certain guidelines that have to be followed, one of which is the house may have to be listed for X number of days before you can even accept an offer. Where if you were going after that deal as an investor, you're pretty much toast right there, because as soon as the house goes in the MLS or goes on Zillow, some inexperienced investor is going to outbid an experienced investor most times, drive the price up to where a disciplined investor like me is not going to want to buy the deal. So that is one of the main differences. So you look at the right under ITP, okay, yeah, we're going to target homeowners in probate that also have a mortgage requiring a short sale with ABC Bank. Now, let's say I already have a relationship, and those of you who are in Audience Igniter are learning how to build relationships with banks. So if I have a chance to do a deal with a bank where I already have a pre-existing relationship, then that transaction trumps the transaction where I'm just targeting someone simply because they're in probate, right? And going back to, we want to pick our best 300 deals. One of those deals makes it into the best 300. One of them doesn't. So if you're using the ITP, you are going to have an opportunity to make sure that that probate deal that's going to be very difficult to close or may not close at all doesn't even make it into your pipeline. You never even talk to that homeowner. You never have the opportunity to start working on this transaction, only to find out later that it's not going to close. So another example is, and this is the one I love, everyone, 20 years ago when I started and I sent out marketing to someone, said, I'll buy your house quick for cash, assuming they were in a very tough situation, that was normally all I had to say, assuming it was true. So fast forward now, 2025, and these platforms, Deal Machine, PropStream, allow someone who has no clue what they're doing to identify an audience and market to that audience. And everyone who owns a distressed property, and in many cases, like my mom, gets a lot of marketing because of the area the property is located in. The house is free and clear. She's not pressed for money at all, and she's not a distressed seller at all. But she still gets constantly marketed to by people saying, I'll buy your house quick for cash. Well, what I'm saying is, in today's market, if you're going to compete against other agents, other investors, you have to have something else, another tool in your toolbox, another card in your deck that you can play. And so take that from an ICP profile, and now let's look at what an ITP profile would look like. It's going to say, okay, my marketing says I help divorcing homeowners that are underwater with ABC Bank, have an FHA mortgage, and need to move quickly. So you see the difference between that general ICP-based audience. Oh, I'm going to send 5,000 letters to people who have a house in this zip code. Oh, I'm going to send 5,000 letters to people that are in foreclosure. Okay, well, you can send those 5,000 letters if you want. Your competitors can also send them. And the homeowner doesn't know any of you, so they have no way to differentiate whether your offer is better than another offer. But if your marketing is hyper specific about what they're going through, well, guess what? All of a sudden, your offer can be differentiated between that and other offers, and your offer looks better, right? And what's the point of marketing? It's to make the customer aware that you exist and hopefully get them to follow a call to action, which is in some way contact you so that you can discuss it further, right? And those of you who are in CloseAbility Academy who take the short sale igniter training, we give you the same method that I use, the same framework to identify the pain points and make sure you focus your call on the pain points the homeowner has, make them constantly relive those pain points, show them the high likelihood of future pain, which gets them to want to work with you versus someone who's given the old generic, I'll buy your house if you're an investor, or the old generic realtor, real estate agent marketing. Hey, I sold 3 houses in the area and now I can help yours. Yeah, all that stuff is great, but it's all played out at this point because everybody in the business has access to it. You got to have something different. So another trait of the ICP is the ICP-based marketing is you're marketing to people as if they have the same level of education and sophistication because you're sending these generic mailings. So in my career, I have sent out mailings to an heir, a son who inherited a property here in Cleveland, who I wind up making a deal with. He was the assistant legal counsel for the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. I have sent out marketing materials to an heir who inherited a property, who turned out to be a bankruptcy trustee in the United States Bankruptcy Court in the state of Nevada. Very, very highly sophisticated people, right? But I also know that most homeowners that own the homes that I was targeting as an investor only had a 10th grade education. If they did graduate from high school, they didn't have a college education. I knew they were female. I knew they were between the ages of 58 and 74. I knew that they were likely to not live in the property and live at least 5 miles away from the property, which means just getting to it posed a challenge. I knew all of those things about my ICP. But at the same time, I also knew, because I was using the Audience Igniter framework, I also knew the level of sophistication based on career achievements, based on level of education. So career achievements, LinkedIn, Google, level of education, many skip trace platforms that offer that information. And so now I'm taking it a step further where I am going to segment my audience, and the more sophisticated property owners that I'm marketing to are going to receive a more sophisticated mailing. Or if you're using email or text or phone calls, I'm going to have a script that accounts for the fact that they are more sophisticated versus someone who's less sophisticated is going to get a different set of marketing, right? If I'm marketing to an heir who's also an attorney, there are certain things about the legal aspect, the basics of real estate, that I probably don't have to explain to them because they're an attorney. Where a homeowner who doesn't have a legal background, I may have to do a different level of explaining. And so because I want them ready to work with me before they call based on the quality of my marketing, I want to make sure that my audience is properly segmented so that when they call, they have already convinced themselves that I am the person they want to work with, and all I have to do is not screw that up, because they've already convinced themselves that they want to work with me. So last thing, and this is a big one. So so there's something about the real estate business where people come into this business and don't understand the basics of being an entrepreneur and running a business. And they just go and think they're going to come in and they're just going to make all these deals, right? They just got their real estate license. I'm going to come in, I'm going to market, I'm going to get all these listings. And as an investor, especially, I see people, the only service most investors offer is, oh, I'll buy your house at a discounted price. Well, only 10% of homeowners would even think that's a good deal, because that's how big the distressed space is. 90% of homeowners do not think you buying their house at a discounted price is a good service or something they would want. And so I have seen over my career so many investors and agents try to work in the distressed space, and they're targeting that 10% niche. But there are some workflows, some that are already built into CloseAbility, so you don't have to learn them like I did. You can just tap right in, plug right in, and start using them. And one of the ones I talk about a lot on these training calls is knowing which neighborhoods have money for buyers, government money, nonprofit money, community development money. The other thing is knowing which neighborhoods, based on the building permit history, are on their way up because investment is being made into that neighborhood. Knowing these things allow you to, especially as an investor or a buyer's agent working with investors that's sourcing for investors, knowing these things allows you to offer homeowners what they want for their properties and still make a profit as a buyer's agent, listing agent, investor, two of the three, all three, because there is value there that an appraisal or the average person with average knowledge of the real estate market can't see. There's hidden value there. And so the idea of every business to be successful has to have product market fit. What's product market fit? You've got the upset stomach. I've got the Pepto-Bismol. There's nothing to talk about here. The money in your pocket that it takes to buy the Pepto-Bismol, you want the Pepto-Bismol more than you want that money in your pocket. So therefore, you're willing to reach in your pocket and give it to Walgreens or give it to CVS because you want the product. That's product market fit. You cannot scale the business without product market fit. And you cannot have product market fit if the only thing you can offer is, I'm going to buy your house for less than it's really worth so I can resell it and make a profit. That's not going to work. You're going to find product market fit with some homeowners, but if you go to scale the business like that, you're not going to find enough homeowners that want that deal to have product market fit. So it's very important that you have a method where you can offer homeowners what they want, or maybe even slightly more, right? So when we invented CloseAbility for home partners, their business plan allowed them to make purchases at what the homeowner wanted because they found other ways to add value to the transaction over the course of a 1 to 5 year period where they were going to be lease purchasing the property to a potential buyer who had actually picked it out. That's the property they wanted to rent to own. And they had worked with a local realtor to find that property. So home partners knew, okay, if we buy in the right areas and we do a 4-year, 3-year, 5-year lease purchase with this person, that property is going to go up in value over time, right? And we're also going to recover a significant portion of our cost basis from the rents that are generated during that lease purchase period. Now, home partners ran into trouble for some other reasons, but that part of their business model was brilliant. because it allowed them to give property owners what they wanted to make deals. So any other investor that was coming into those transactions trying to make deals by offering less than what the property owner wanted, they simply were not able to outbid Home Partners, and Home Partners was able to achieve product market fit at scale because they had a way to make deals where it was a mutually beneficial, great deal for homeowner and them. Okay, these 4 points. Understanding these 4 points alone will change how you get return on your marketing ad spend, ROAS, return on advertising spend. That's what you want. You're all spending money on marketing. How do you maximize your return on investment from your marketing? And the distress space, this is how. This is how you do it. Next slide. Okay, so info@CloseAbility.io. Anybody wants a copy of the slide deck, go ahead and send us an email, and we'll send it to you. Read the testimonials and some additional bonus information we'll put in there. Next slide. Okay, so fun fact. So for those of you who don't know, we started an organization called the Abandoned Homes Project back in 2015. And the purpose of Abandoned Homes Project is the world's first for-profit land bank. So nonprofit land banks let all the houses sit in the community, go to sheriff's sale. They sit for years. They get dilapidated. And by the time the land bank gets the property back, it's not worth much. And it's ruined the property values of the surrounding properties. So what we did was create an organization called Abandoned Homes Project. And that's what that organization was the client in this particular case study. And what we did was we learned how to effectively turn vacant homes into housing opportunities for middle income families, many of which became the first homeowner in their entire family through generations. And the property owners that we were targeting to get these units from were also facing foreclosure and needed expert short sale assistance. And so it was a win-win for the whole community. And those workflows that we run through Abandoned Homes Project are the workflows that we build, test, deploy, close deals with them, and then we deploy them into the CloseAbility platform where our clients, attorneys, and agents can benefit from having those proven workflows. So again, the few workflows I talked, there are over 300 workflows that are already built into CloseAbility. So you don't have to do like I did over 20 some years and have thousands of deals not close because you got into a deal, couldn't identify which ones were going to close, didn't know the proper workflow to close the ones that could close. Rather than go through all that trial and error, you can simply plug into our platform, plug your CRM into our platform, or come onto our platform as a buyer's agent in the free tier, and we'll give you Follow-Up Boss, which we think is the best CRM out there for distressed. And you just plug right into it and go. And spend less time worrying about how am I going to close these deals, or are they going to close, and more time worried about how I get in front of prospects more so that I can get more listings, and as an investor, get more contracts signed, get more interior inspections going, because getting a contract signed, getting an interior inspection, we all know as an investor, you cannot scale without those things happening within your transaction workflows. And the same if you're going to be the listing agent. You got to get in to see the property. You got to get a listing agreement signed. So those are the things that we want you to be able to focus on in your business while we focus on the workflows, the analytics, the data, the analysis. Let us focus on those things while you focus on getting the deals closed, okay? James, is there one more slide here? I thought this was the last one. The results. So again, anybody wants a copy of this slide deck, email us, info@closeability.io. Now, very important, when you send us the email, only licensed agents and licensed attorney. If you're not already within our community, please send us your license number. We're going to do a quick check to make sure you're licensed. If you are an unlicensed real estate investor and you're interested in our program, send us an email. We will hook you up with a licensed agent or licensed attorney in your area who's using our platform. you can use our platform under their supervision, right? So you can still benefit from the platform, but our training materials, our software, all of that is specifically only available to licensed agents and licensed attorneys. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Mindy, you're here for one of our design partners, Lisa. Design partners get to ask questions on these calls. Any questions, Mindy?
I don't have any.
All right. Fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up, and we will send all of the licensed agents and licensed attorneys. We'll go ahead and send over this video and lesson and the slide deck and start incorporating this. If you have any questions about how to better incorporate this into your business, you guys have our calendar link. Go ahead and set up an appointment or send us a text message on the text chain or an email, and we'll get you into a call. All right, great. Have a good one. Live a great life. Close more deals. Make more money. Have time for what matters.